3 News Now this week.
It's not your traditional treatment, but tilapia skin is helping this 10-month-old cat heal from second and third degree burns.
If it works like it should granulate and it should get new tissue growing there.
King was pulled from a fiery home with roughly 50% of his body burned. Within days, his skin started falling off. Dr. Katie James, a Nebraska Humane Shelter veterinarian, says regular treatment options weren't working, and they needed to find something new.
Turns out it's hard to find fresh fish in Nebraska.
She, along with a team of other doctors, looked into organic bandages used on animals burned in the California wildfires.
It actually protects the burn area from basically getting desiccated or drying out. And it's also going to give some healing properties. It has a collagen in it, which helps the healing process.
Dr. Amber Horn went to a local fish market, found tilapia, they filleted the fish. King was prepped for surgery, and they stitched it on.
Skin side down, scale side up.
This was their first time using this treatment, and they say so far, so good.
We're just hoping that his healing time is shortened and that he experiences less pain because of the tilapia.
Doctors say King still has a long way to go. In the next 10 days, they'll take off that tilapia skin, and hopefully they'll see some regrowth. They do tell me that he is definitely in pain, but he is not suffering, so hopefully this little guy can pull through. Now, the young cat is heavily medicated, and his tail was amputated because burns were so deep it hit bone. Doctors believe the fish could be a game changer when treating animals.
Regular bandages become soiled and become sort of a breeding ground for bacteria. Tilapia skin in general has some antibacterial properties that resist bacterial infection a little bit longer.
King will remain at the Humane Society under a close eye by the experts. If healing goes as planned, he will eventually be returned to his family. In Omaha, Kent Lutzen, 3 News Now.
Flu activity continues to increase at an alarming rate in Douglas County. According to the Douglas County Health Department, last week there was a record-breaking amount of confirmed cases, almost 900, despite most clinics being closed Christmas Day. The growing number of cases is alarming health professionals.
It really took off, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it's just been straight up. And we've already surpassed the number of cases so far this year than we've seen in any of the past 5 years.
According to the health department, every week the amount of confirmed cases keeps growing in the county. Take a look at this red line. That represents this year's numbers alone. All the other lines represent previous years. This year's flu season that started a month early is clearly breaking records.
The main strain that we're seeing is really just this H1N1 strain that we've seen in past years, but for whatever reason took off earlier this year and has really spread throughout the population quite quickly.
The health department has also recently announced the death of a second Douglas County resident as a result of this year's flu season. Both flu victims were over the age of 65, one of the most vulnerable age ranges.
So those people who are most susceptible to death or complications due to flu are very young, so kids typically less than 1 year of age, or the elderly, those who are over 65 years of age.
Walgreens tracks the amount of flu medication its pharmacies provides. As of December 21st, Nebraska is the #1 state for medications, and in the entire country, Omaha is the most affected city.
We really don't have a good explanation for that, and the flu, typically comes on in one region of the country and spreads very quickly, or another region, and unfortunately this is our year to be one of the first areas to get struck by the flu.
To better protect yourself from the flu, remember that it's not too late to get your flu shot if you haven't already. Make sure to stay home from work if you're experiencing any symptoms, and of course, wash your hands.
So wash your hands a lot. Get plenty of rest, fluids, a little bit of exercise. Try to keep your immune system as healthy as it can so that you can ward off the virus if you're exposed to it.
Reporting in Omaha, Rudolph Sinaida, 3 News Now.
The mall's closing means the end of an era in Council Bluffs. We caught up with the owners of Nami's Taylor, who say they hope the new location helps their business. Nami Gannon tells us she opened up shop about 15 years ago at the Mall of the Bluffs. She says business was great when she was located near Dillard's, but as more and more stores shut down, she had to move to a different location within the mall. She and her husband say that's when business began to decline. And while the Gannons say they hate to see the mall close, they're hopeful the new location will be better.
Sad. I want to cry. Sad.
Fred, what about you?
We
We've been here a long time. We spent a lot of time here. We've invested a lot of time here. But talking to her customers, they're all very happy that we're going to be staying in the Council Bluffs area.
Well, the Gannons say they only had about 4 weeks notice to get moved out. Tomorrow is the final day tenants have to move all their items out of the mall. Now, we did reach out to Woodsonia Real Estate, the company that's handling the mall's acquisition, regarding the closure, but haven't heard back. Nami's Taylor hopes to reopen by January 7th. Menards has purchased the space at the Mall of the Bluffs, and they tell us they plan to tear it down and build another Menards location. In studio, Sydney Gray, 3 News Now this morning.
4 Gretna girls die in a fiery crash in June. 1 survived. Sheriffs say the teens had been drinking before going off the road. And since then, they've arrested or cited 12 teens for stealing alcohol from the Gretna Walmart, 3 for minor in possession in a school parking lot, and 1 with fake identification.
The accident really has had no ill effect on juveniles wanting to or trying to consume alcohol or obtaining alcohol, which is extremely unfortunate.
Sarpy Sheriff Jeff Davis says some teens are getting a hold of alcohol like vodka, putting them in water bottles and selling them for $5 to $10.
It's a problem not only, in Sarpy County, it's a statewide issue.
Andrea Frazier with Mothers Against Drunk Driving says parents need to be more vigilant than ever because kids are getting more sneaky when concealing booze.
One of the alarming trends we're seeing is kids are not choosing to drink beer. They're looking for the harder alcohols, and that can be really frightening that they don't understand how that's going to affect their system.
She recommends parents have access and monitor their kids' social media profiles, understand they may have hidden accounts, check their backpacks and vehicles for empty drink bottles and find out what was in them. Check for fake identification because they're easy to buy on the internet. Plus, kids need to hear the consequences of stealing alcohol. Since it's New Year's Eve, Mad says let your child know your expectations if hosting or going to a party. Also, make sure your kids are safe and know they can contact someone if they need help.
When we talk with parents, we just remind them to be honest, have the conversation often, and have it early. The earlier you start talking to kids, the more likely they are to kind of develop that trust in you.
Reporting in Sarpy County, Jake Wozakowski, 3 News Now.
Many people in the metro are stopping at their favorite local spots to bring in the new year.
We have a different clientele. This is a neighborhood bar.
Jim Kelter works at the Poop Deck Bar. He expects dozens will come in and out of the bar to celebrate a new decade. And with all the excitement of New Year's, he says it's easy for people to overconsume.
A lot of people say, yeah, I'm just coming there for 1 or 2 drinks. Well, 1 or 2 turns into 3 or 4.
That's why he says it's important bartenders know when to cut people off.
A bartender has to gauge when somebody has had enough. And here in this place, we know everybody. So a lot of times we will say, you know what, this is probably your last drink.
More importantly, Kelter says they ensure everyone gets home safely.
If you need a ride home, we're more than willing. Somebody in here, because we're all friends, would volunteer to drive them home.
But Bellevue Police Sergeant Joe Milo says people must plan ahead.
The decision not to drive has to be made before we start celebrating because of the way the alcohol and other drugs can affect our decision making, that we can't, the odds are stacked against us to make a good decision after the fact. So we got to make it ahead of time.
Sergeant Milo says expect to see extra officers throughout the metro working to keep you safe.
We see in Nebraska 21 to 34 account for over half of our alcohol related crashes. So that's pretty wide age range. But during the holidays, everybody gets together, and that's part of that celebration. And we just hope that the driving aspect is not part of that celebration.
Kelter says he wants everyone to enjoy their time, but
we draw the line when you get to the point where you've had too much that we stop serving.
Safety is most important. In Omaha, Sydney Gray, 3 News Now.
I'm in the front seat with a Nebraska State Trooper patrolling the highways for drunk drivers this New Year's Eve. For some tonight, the party will end here in the back seat with hefty fines and possible jail time. However, this isn't even the worst case scenario.
1 out of 3 total fatality accidents in Nebraska involve alcohol. Reality sets in pretty quick then.
Trooper Jake Arnold has been with the Nebraska State Patrol for 5 years and has arrested plenty of people for driving under the influence.
I alone made 6 arrests for DUI last week, 2 of them being felony arrests.
According to the United States Department of Transportation, every holiday season, hundreds of lives are lost due to drunk drivers. Nationally, over the past 5 years, an average of 300 people died in drunk driving crashes the week between Christmas and New Year's. And it falls on law enforcement to combat these numbers.
One aspect of our job is a death notification.
Trooper Arnold will never forget a crash that killed a boy and his uncle.
They were hit by a drunk driver, and I had to inform the mother of the 9-year-old boy, and that's not something that I really ever dreamed of doing while working with the patrol, you know.
It's an unfortunate reality, but Trooper Arnold says a good amount of it could be avoided by finding a sober driver.
I would say other than St. Patty's Day, New Year's Eve is one of the highest traveled times of the year, and there's going to be a lot of troopers, let alone other agencies, working the roads tonight, looking for impaired drivers.
Since the start of the holiday season, Nebraska state troopers have arrested 66 drunk drivers and roughly 1,100 in 2019. He wants everyone to immediately call in if they see someone driving under the influence. In Omaha, Kent Lutzen, 3 News Now.
Influenza has impacted Nebraska in record numbers this year.
It really took off, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it's just been straight up. And we've already surpassed the number of cases so far this year than we've seen in any of the past 5 years.
But it's not just going around the state or Douglas County. It's affecting the Douglas County Jail as well.
For at least the last decade, we have had no influenza in the jail. So this is unprecedented for us.
The jail has been dealing with a flu outbreak for 2.5 weeks now.
We have had 33 cases since the outbreak began.
Jail Director Michael Myers says he attributes the outbreak to the record-breaking flu numbers across the county.
We're basically a reflection of what's going on in the community. We book about 50 new people in every day. And release about that many as well, so there's a lot of traffic in and out.
But unlike the Nebraska State Penitentiary, who had to cancel Christmas Eve visitation due to their flu outbreak, the Douglas County Jail is not canceling any visitations.
We have not had to cancel any visitations because our visitations with the general public are not face-to-face, they're through video visitation.
The jail has stepped up their sanitation and disinfecting routines to treat sick inmates and prevent further spreading.
We don't want to see disruptions that are prolonged. We don't want to see our staff or inmates at risk of being sick. That just adds additional stresses to an already stressful environment.
The jail director expects more cases throughout the jail this flu season, but attributes successful containment of the illness to hard-working staff. Reporting in Douglas County, Rudolph Sinaida, 3 News Now.
It was days like today that were especially hard. Frigid cold, snow on the ground, but still one Fremont woman would walk to work every single day. Well, she no longer has to do that. After getting a Christmas present she'll never forget. With 4 kids, Rachel Howard had no choice but to wake up a little early and make the 10-minute walk to her daycare job, whatever the weather was like. To do that, she'd suit up herself and her 2-year-old child.
I didn't really try to miss any days because being a single mom, you have to work every day.
Her boss took notice, eventually sharing her story with the owner of Fremont Auto Center, who was giving away a vehicle to one person in need. It was tough, but eventually for Aaron Payton and his friend and business owner Chris Min, one story stood out. Rachel's.
Gainfully employed, working hard, single mom, doing the best she can.
And just, needed a break, so we wanted to help her out.
2 days before Christmas, they shocked Rachel, handing her the keys to a van she could call hers.
You're joking. So I look at my boss and her eyes were watering, and she shook her head yes at me, and they weren't joking.
Along with the Honda Odyssey, there were 4 bicycles, food for a holiday dinner, gift cards, cash, and even Christmas presents for the kids.
That was like the biggest surprise ever. I've never won anything.
Payton, who just opened up his dealership this year, was just as surprised that over a dozen other businesses stepped up. The whole ordeal put him in the holiday spirit like he never imagined.
I didn't realize how big a deal it was until we got closer to actually doing it. And for her to not have to, walk in the snow this morning and with a 2-year-old, it just makes a guy feel good.
So after years of walking and relying on rides from friends, Rachel now has a set of wheels to do the simple tasks in life, like taking her kids to the doctor and running to the store.
Even going to the grocery store has been like, I'm crying because I can go to the grocery store without having to call for a ride.
Reporting in Fremont, John Kipper, 3 News Now.
For many, 2019 was a difficult year, but there were still a lot of stories that made us smile.
In this week's Courtney's Corner, I took a look back at some of the animals that lifted our spirits. From babies born to a dog's day of appreciation, here's a look at some of our favorite animals of 2019. After working 8 years for the Sarpy County Sheriff's Office, Canine Jazz retired, and she did it in style with a ceremony and peanut butter cake.
Round of applause for Jazz.
But the best gift for this gal,
not lacking in energy, are you, girl?
She got to go home with her partner.
I told the sheriff, I said, if you don't let me keep her, I said, be prepared for me to take her and we're gonna run.
And while Jazz retired, the Henry Dorley Zoo and Aquarium welcomed a bunch of babies into the world. Weighing just over 150 pounds, Zoe the giraffe was born on April 6th. About a month later, the zoo had 3 more beautiful babies. These snow leopard cubs were born on May 22nd. Within a matter of months, they were introduced into the Asian Highlands section of the zoo, while this little gorilla needed a little more time. Zuri had trouble feeding and spent a lot of time away from her parents, being fed by zoo staff. But this month, the zoo announced she has officially joined her family at the zoo. And we can't forget about Marshall, who made history. Born at 120 pounds, this calf is the first rhino born at the zoo.
Absolutely, that is the worst case of matting that I think any of us had ever seen.
9 pounds of fur, with nails as long as 7 inches. This is how Ellie Mae came to the Nebraska Humane Society. After several surgeries, Ellie Mae found a new family, getting the love and attention every animal deserves.
I know I love you too. I do.
And this last story may not exactly count as an animal story, but it sure did get a lot of likes. Take a look. This photo was taken back in August at a wedding in Omaha. The bride told her maid of honor she could wear whatever she wanted. And, well, as you can see, she ran with it, dressing up as a T-Rex, holding a bouquet of flowers.
Body cam photos show the moments when 57-year-old Terry Hudson came out of an Evans Tower apartment armed, raising a gun, and saying, "Kill me," before exchanging gunfire. At 10 p.m. on Tuesday, officers responded to a domestic disturbance where Hudson allegedly pulled a gun and choked his girlfriend, Dana Wells, at her apartment. Hudson was killed when bullets were flying. Wells was found dead later in the apartment. The Evans Tower is a senior living building run by the Omaha Housing Authority. Wells lived there. Hudson was not an OHA resident.
Main concern is safety.
A resident we spoke to who didn't want to be identified says security is a major issue. People who don't live there come in and out all the time.
People were trying to go out the door and they're afraid to go out because the other people that don't live here are trying to get in. Drug dealers, prostitutes, all that, trying to get in. And they're afraid to go out the door.
Residents' biggest concern is the door that comes out to the parking lot, which you're supposed to use a key card to get in with. Apparently it didn't lock before, but they say they've been told it's been fixed since then.
They say they don't feel safe. They say they can't come out of their apartments. So between the drug dealers or whatever's going on, they're getting robbed. You know, and that shouldn't be happening in a senior tower.
Bergen would like to see more security because he gets a lot of calls from concerned residents. OHA CEO Joni Poor says they've been taking a comprehensive look at security, including more secure entries, more cameras, and parking lot lighting. She says their team was there today to make sure the door was properly working or fixed immediately.
Like you and I, we want to be safe in our home, and so it's a top priority for us. We don't want there to be drug activity or any other illegal activity. People should be able to feel safe and comfortable in their homes.
Residents say seniors shouldn't have to worry like this.
Do something to protect the elderly people. Some of these people are real sick. They can't hardly walk around, you know what I mean? Then they're afraid to go out the door. That ain't the way you're supposed to live.
Reporting from 27 The Project, Wazakowski, 3 News Now.
But we are done being assaulted. We are done being hurt.
We are done watching children get hurt and watching other people get hurt.
The Nebraska Teachers Union is seeking clarity because they say countless teachers have been hit and have no recourse, including Trisha Rohde.
I remember with crystal clarity the look on the student's face and the fear I had of what the student would do next.
Right now, physically restraining students is allowed, stemming from a Nebraska Supreme Court case 30 years ago, but there's no state law allowing it. So some teachers around Nebraska don't do it and fear they'll be punished.
And it's happened that they've then been in trouble with administration for stepping in.
A bill floating in the legislature would change that. LB 147 would allow school employees to restrain students, to kick them out of class when student learning is disrupted, and make each district make policy on how they would do this and when the student could come back to class. But some parents don't like it.
If LB 147 is passed, they're not going to be held accountable for any action.
Michelle Zephyr's son Dylan has Down syndrome and autism. She says he's already been physically restrained and secluded at 3 Omaha area school districts. She says he's had marks and PTSD from the incidents. She's pulled him out of school since September and has plans to homeschool him. If the bill passes, she worries it could happen to more kids.
It's just giving all teachers and staff a green light to do whatever impulsive reaction that they have at the time.
The NSEA says a special plan needs to be in place when kids with disabilities are removed, and that staff won't be able to get away with anything.
But if your policy is clearly laid out and you have made sure that every person, every adult in your system knows that policy, then you hold them accountable to that, just as we get held accountable for everything else.
Again, NSEA stresses the law would give teachers the option to restrain students, but would not require that they do it in every situation. Reporting in Lincoln, John Kipper, 3 News Now.
Tonight, we hear from the man in charge. That's Speaker Jim Scheer of Norfolk, who sees his job more as a mediator to the other 48 senators at the Capitol.
Your grandpa.
For Speaker Jim Scheer, in order to get any of the big legislation passed in 2020, senators who see the world very differently are going to have to come together, something that did not happen last year.
If there's one thing that this body probably needs, and probably for the last 50 or 60 years, is compromise.
In 2019, you saw the unicameral's urban-rural divide come into play in a major way on 2 different bills that were tied together. Rural senators were pushing for a variety of measures, anything really, that would have given farmers and ranchers relief on their property tax bills. That didn't happen, mainly because senators from Omaha and Lincoln and surrounding areas wouldn't budge. Those same rural senators then blocked a bill that would update state law on incentivizing businesses to come and stay in the state, something many urban senators thought was a good idea for the economy and to keep talented people in Nebraska. This coming session, nothing's changed. Those bills are again tied together tightly.
You'll need cross-pollination from both those bills to make both of them successful.
There will be pushback coming on both fronts this year. Some question why the state continues to give big businesses tax breaks when many of the largest, like TD Ameritrade, Cabela's, and ConAgra, have or plan to leave the state. Scheer, who wants to see the business incentive bill passed, says the state never handed them money. They earned it by giving Nebraskans jobs for a number of years.
Those companies did what was required of them to receive it. It wasn't that they left as soon as they got the check. All these companies had received those fundings a long time ago.
Still, when the senators return to the floor, the elephant in the room will again be passing property tax relief. Senators have worked in the summer and fall to find a consensus, but it's unclear there is one, or if Governor Pete Ricketts is on board with that plan.
Regardless if the governor supports it or not, we at least have to try to do something. If that means passing it and you have some fall off and you aren't successful, so be it.
There's pressure to get both of those bills done. A petition drive to cut state property taxes by 35% is gaining momentum, and the current state business incentive bill expires at the end of the year. Scheer thinks those deadlines will spur action.
I fully expect both the property tax and the incentive legislation to pass.
Now, there also has been confusion regarding the legalization of hemp and if CBD products are legal or not. Speaker Scheer says you could be seeing an update to that this coming session. Reporting in the studio, John Kipper, 3 News Now.
OK Boba House in the Old Market just completed its first Christmas in Omaha.
Business and actually closer to the holidays has been picking up.
Gloria Sanchez is the store's manager. She said business has been higher over the holidays compared to the fall.
We were kind of one of the only local businesses around that were open, so we had a lot more traffic than we expected.
Across the Old Market at the Havana Garage, the regulars are keeping bartenders busy.
It's been steady.
But New Year's isn't the best time to be in the bar business.
Business seems to slow down right after, seems right around January 1st, when everyone makes their resolutions to quit drinking and quit smoking and quit spending money, which is what you do here.
Throughout the Old Market, people were busy shopping and stopping by all the restaurants the neighborhood has to offer.
People still flock down here. The lights are still, part of the tradition.
While shoppers can go online and to other parts of Omaha, the Old Market businesses are still going strong.
I don't see a noticeable dip. I don't think the Old Market is dying yet.
And for some patrons, it's the people who matter, not the product.
It's the camaraderie, it's the friendship. That's what it is. That's what it's all about.
Reporting in the Old Market, Phil Bergman, 3 News Now.
My favorite NFL team, lost in the sauce.
The chef is in. Ow.
And you can touch those if you want and see how hot they are and burn your fingers.
Ah.
Yeah, right?
I have dreams about food, and I dream about food.
Yeah.
I really do. Every dream I have, there's a food in it. And I've been dreaming about pancakes.
You got the best.
My body is like 90% hot dog already. Is that the spice, the secret cheese?
I don't know.
Oh, man. En español, dime. ¿Qué hace? No se van a entender.
Sí, ese es el secreto.
Ready? Right. No. Wait a minute. Why do they look like this?
Like pork ears.
Okay. I feel like they're gonna walk out of my mouth somehow. Okay.
It's just like you're picking at chicken.
I don't even know how to start it though. Well, mine. Start on the toes. Oh. Do I start with the toes or the like?
I could just sit here and just smell it.
I wish you guys could smell this. This is really good.
Man, here's our biscuits, homemade biscuits.
My happy dance. I could close my eyes and pretend I'm in California Beach on a beach somewhere, just enjoying it. These aren't all mine. I mean, they are, but
All this for you?
it's a good thing I only had a granola bar for breakfast
That's
today.
right. We expect 2 people to share it.
Or just for
Oh,
Is that right? Is this all for me? Is this all for me? Yes? You heard I was coming? ¿Supo que iba a venir yo? Muy bien. Not a baby. This is a 3-pound, 3-egg burrito baby.
Everybody knows about Ethnic Sandwich Shop, so it's a nice little hidden gem. So they like it too, obviously.
Often as I can, but don't tell my wife. She gets angry when she doesn't come with.
We went to Weight Watchers.
And because we had a successful week, we decided to try out the new ice cream.
Yes.
What better way to celebrate?
So now we have to go to the gym.
Yeah.
My mom loves it. She loves the fish, and I take it to her on Friday. And she goes, when I show up to her house, she runs down the hall and goes, ooh, I gotta get my teeth.
Definitely napkin food. You need a lot of napkins.
No, and I'm the world's messiest eater. Can you get a couple more napkins? I have
Who uses napkins?
It's barbecue.
That's why you have your shirt.
Hello, ladies.
Oh, wow.
Don't tell my trainer, 'cause I'm not supposed to be eating bread. But so someplace my trainer may be okay with me eating.
Well, if your trainer come here, then he'll tell you this is the only place you have to go.
Okay, perfect. Well, this is called the breakup.
It's called the breakup, yep.
Do you have a lot of people who come in here and are like, I need it?
Nah, you wouldn't think so. Yeah, I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe I do.
I'll definitely, I'm gonna sneak a bite. Don't tell me. Oh my gosh, this is like bigger than my
There
face.
you go. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Wow. I got a brain freeze, but
It's worth it.
it's worth it. Would I get hired? Would you hire me?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Do I get a discount?
We're all looking at you.
And the chili is pretty spicy, so, you know.
Uh-oh. Okay.
I would throw a little bit of sauce, hot or not. I mean, Cholula is not really hot.
See, I'm the worst Mexican. I don't eat spicy. Isn't that the worst thing? So 1 to 10, how spicy?
Oh, I'd say it's a 5.
A 5?
4 to 5.
I typically only do 2 or less. All right. We may have to have the medics on standby. We're gonna bring the water a little closer to me. Woo! Oh.
Water.
See?
It builds up.
It does. Wow. Ooh, poquito picoso. Oh my gosh.
Inside of it.
That's it.
Is that a hot one?
My parents are gonna be so disappointed.
Yeah.
Can I get a glass of milk, please? You know how you sometimes feel like someone's just watching you eat?
Yeah.
That's how I feel with this guy, right? How do you say thank you in Turkish?
In Turkish we say teşekkür ederim.
What was that?
Teşekkür ederim. Teşekkür ederim.
Teşekkür ederim.
Yes.
Teşekkür ederim.
Yes.
Teşekkür ederim.
A number of churches around the Omaha area will spend the weekend tackling a tough security lesson. 3 News Now reporter Ruta Olsonida joins us with more on what they hope to learn. The Douglas County Sheriff's Office is holding a training seminar titled What Churches Need to Do in an Active Killer Situation, the Run, Hide, and Fight Method. The training comes at a sensitive time as just this past Sunday, a gunman opened fire at a church in Texas. A quick-thinking churchgoer shot back at the gunman, killing him only 6 seconds after the initial shot. It's this type of quick thinking that the Sheriff's Office wants to instill in local places of worship. At last year's training, church members appreciated all the lessons.
I'm impressed to see the enthusiasm of people that belong to these churches that want to set up a plan of some kind in case of any kind of situation.
We reached out to multiple places of worship around the area to get their thoughts on security. Needless to say, it's an extremely sensitive topic that many church leaders were not comfortable discussing. The training sessions will take place at the Douglas County Sheriff's Office this Saturday. We'll have more details on the training and the impact it can have on the community tonight at 6 o'clock. For now, reporting live in studio, Ruta Olsonida, 3 News Now.
At the start of the new year, police cruisers in Nebraska were required to have e-ticketing software in their cars. Many departments across the state have been implementing the technology over the last few years to prepare for the change. Reporter Phil Bergman went out to talk with officers about how they like this new technology.
If you happen to get pulled over in 2020, you may find yourself getting a new type of ticket.
It is really simple to use.
Officer Sean Manning with the Bellevue Police Department showed me around his car.
We have our printer that is down here.
The department's been implementing electronic tickets for the last 2.5 years. The software, called Trax, is used in all police cars across the state.
It's easier to track data, get data, and use the data.
I'm telling you, it'll save them so much time.
Lieutenant Mike Grummert with the Nebraska State Patrol wasn't sure about the new technology at first.
After having this program for a week, it's amazing how easy everything is.
8 years later, he's a huge supporter of the technology.
There's no question, especially some people, police officers with their handwriting and stuff like that, it makes it a lot easier to read and that type of stuff.
I wanted to see how the e-ticket technology worked, so I gave Lieutenant Grummert my license and had him give me a fake ticket.
And then it just has your name right up the top. I hit enter and all your information goes right into there. So then after it validates it or whatever, I just hit the print button. My handy dandy printer's right here. And just like that, ticket's done.
Along with the printed ticket, the citation information is sent automatically to the county courthouses, saving officers time on the paperwork and giving them more time to protect Nebraskans.
Once you get used to it, I think they're really going to like it.
Reporting in Omaha, Phil Bergman, 3 News Now.
Next week, the 49 state senators will head back to the state capitol in Lincoln for the 2020 legislative session. The body has big issues to tackle, and reporter John Kipper is speaking with a few select state senators before the 60-day session starts. Today, he talked with the youngest senator in the unicameral, 23-year-old Julius Lama.
Jenny, despite it being her first year in Lincoln, the Southeast Nebraska conservative was outspoken last session and plans to be again on issues affecting rural Nebraskans. She says those small-town constituents will be paying close attention.
If the legislature doesn't get anything done this year, I think the voters will make themselves heard at the ballot box in November 2020.
State Senator Julie Slama has her eye on a petition drive. She says those farmers and ranchers are tired of inaction of the unicameral to reform the tax code and reduce their property taxes.
If the property tax debate fails for yet another year, you're going to see some rural senators, including myself, very fired up and very frustrated with this process.
If passed, the petition drive would force the state to reduce property taxes by 35%, reducing state revenue by around $1 billion. If that happens, it would then be on the legislature to cut state services.
We would have to raise taxes in other areas because there are certain things that we can cut in our state government down to bare bones, and there's certain things we can't.
So the senator from Peru is going to Lincoln next week to work to avoid the need of the petition drive. She supports the outlines of a plan that would change the school funding formula, giving every district some amount of state aid, allowing the local governments to reduce taxes on ag land, eventually lowering property taxes on residential homeowners.
We're not going to undo 4 decades of property tax policy in one session, especially a 60-day session. So I think if we are going to make some positive progress in this session, it will have to be in a small, measured step.
That's not all she wants to do. In her district sits the troubled Tecumseh State Prison.
There are many ways in which having the prison be in Tecumseh has put Johnson County in a tough spot.
Right now, when there's a riot or other violent incidents at the prison, Johnson County is on the hook for over $225,000 in legal fees. Her bill would cut that in half, which she thinks would be crucial for the small county.
Those kind of liabilities are coming out of the ROC budgets, they're coming out of the school budgets. Any other place where property taxes could be going in Johnson County would be going to those liabilities.
And Senator Slama will also introduce a resolution that would reprioritize flood control to the top of the Army Corps of Engineers list. She then hopes other nearby states get on board as well. Reporting in the studio, John Kipper, 3 News Now.
If you're one of those people who buys a real Christmas tree, you know the teardown process is not the fun part. But firefighters are warning if you haven't done it yet, don't wait. About 160 fires a year start by Christmas trees in the U.S. Reporter John Kipper spoke with one local fire department who is telling the public now is the time to trash your tree.
The holidays are over. Presents have been opened. Most people are back to work. But some still have that Christmas tree lingering around the house, which could be a big problem.
The trees only last a certain amount of time. Sooner or later, that sap's going to harden. The tree's not going to absorb any more water. It's going to dry out. When it dries out, it becomes a real fire danger. Just the slightest bit of heat source is going to be able to ignite it.
Bill Bowes, chief of Papillion Fire, says 1 of 3 fires caused by Christmas trees strike in January. A longtime firefighter sees it every few years.
Maybe every 3 or 4 years in this area is about all we see, which is terrific. That means people are doing a good job of being aware of when the tree is drying out and when it's time to get rid of it.
In the metro, there's an easy way to handle your old tree.
Take it to one of the tree disposal sites. There are a handful of those all around the metro area. There are groups in the Boy Scout area that are collecting trees to use for habitat. So those trees can go to great use after they're done.
In Sarpy County, John Kipper, 3 News Now.
Tree disposal site on our website, 3newsnow.com. Good evening, I'm Jennifer Griswold. We start tonight with an update to a story about a revenge porn bill we brought you in March. A man who allegedly tried extorting a state Senate candidate in 2018 is facing federal charges that could have him locked up for years. This case helped pass a revenge porn law in Nebraska. 3 News Now investigator Jeff Van Sant has the latest developments in this ongoing case.
Imagine a bitter ex, someone you once trusted completely, threatens to embarrass you by revealing an intimate photo, blackmailing.
I trusted him completely. I thought that I would be with this man forever.
Diane Paris's ex from 25 years ago, Dennis Sireniavsky, is now facing federal charges of cyberstalking and interstate threats with intent to extort. In late 2018, Diane was a campaign manager for her husband, Jeff Paris, who was running to be a state senator. Diane's ex sends her husband an old nude photo of her and demanding him to pull out of the race and any other in the future, or it would be released.
I think I was horrified, embarrassed, and afraid.
At the time, Nebraska didn't have a revenge porn law. Cops couldn't do much about it, so they took it to the FBI.
That's the only reason that he will see any punishment whatsoever, is because what he did was extortion.
Diane testifies in front of the state legislature, telling her story, helping to get a bill passed just last spring. Suri Niavsky pled not guilty to both charges. He's out of jail waiting for his next court appearance. Jeff Van Sant, 3 News Now.
A wife in an abusive relationship tried to leave again, but this time she didn't leave with her life. Today, Brandon Norton told the judge he murdered his wife, Jennifer Norton, in 2018. Senior reporter Jake Wazakowski explains and tells us what Jennifer's family wants people to know.
Jennifer Norton was known for being there for everybody, especially her kids.
Jennifer was a very loving and caring person.
But her family says she struggled to get herself out of an abusive relationship with her husband, Brandon Norton, who ultimately took her life. Brandon pleads guilty to second-degree murder and removing a human body in Sarpy County District Court.
You do admit that you took your wife, Jennifer Norton's life, and disposed of her body here in Sarpy County, Nebraska.
Yes.
Jennifer's family says they're finally starting to get closure.
My hope and everything is in the judge will make the right decision and give him life in prison. I don't want him dead. You know, I'm not like that. I want him to always remember what he did and never forget Jennifer's face.
Jennifer told Brandon she was leaving him and filing for divorce in June 2018 when he strangled her to death in their home. He threw her body in the Missouri River. Authorities didn't know he killed his wife until he walked in their door.
When asked why he did what he did, the defendant stated he didn't want to lose his family and she had served him divorce papers approximately 1 month prior, and that it took him 5 minutes to take his children's mother away from them.
No woman that wants a divorce deserves to be murdered just because she wants out of her life.
Jennifer's family says she had left Brandon about 5 times before but always went back. This last time she started a new job and cut her hair short to signify that was it, but she never made it out. Her family wants others to get help before it's too late.
They really need to seek help. Be prepared. You never know. You have to have a safety plan in place. Somebody, a friend, a family member, somebody to support you emotionally to get away from it.
Even though the mandatory life sentence was taken off the table, the second-degree murder guilty plea does mean a life sentence is still possible. Norton will be back in court in March to find out his punishment. Reporting in Papillion, Jake Wazakowski, 3 News Now.
Jennifer's family wanted to thank law enforcement and first responders for their hard work on the case. The next phase of the 75 North development is nearing completion, the Highlander Accelerator Dining Room. It sits where Pleasant View housing projects once stood near 30th and Lake. Chief photographer Stephanie Nolte gives you a sneak peek at the new dining hall where Big Mama's Kitchen will call home.
10 years ago, crews tore down this Pleasant View sign, clearing space for a new beginning. Through groundbreakings and lots of construction, the community remained hopeful they could turn this North Omaha neighborhood around.
The opposite of everything we wanted to create. We wanted a place that was safe, number one, a place that was cohesive, and a place that fostered a sense of community, and that's not what Pleasant View did.
Over the past few years, they've gotten that, from apartments and row houses to easy access to higher education. And now, the Highlander Accelerator Dining Room.
The design is built in a way that encourages people to get to know each other. There's communal dining, so you're going to have to rub elbows with people that maybe you haven't before.
The Highlander Accelerator is home to 3 fast casual restaurants. Lance and Natalie Wang own Pico and the Highlander Bar and Grill, opening January 22nd.
Mexican style
street food, and the other concept is more bar oriented, pizzas and burgers.
This project is exciting to be a part of. It's so all-encompassing. It's taking care of every part of a community and what a community needs to be successful and to build. And being the food and beverage part of that is the most fun.
Big Mama's Kitchen opens Tuesday.
This was one of my mom's last visions before she passed away. She was a part of the planning of this space and what it looks like and what it feels like. And we're just super excited to be here in this brand new kitchen.
Big Mama's is still serving your old favorites as well as a few new things.
The Accelerator sandwich or salad, which is named after the building. And it's a wonderful salad, kind of along the lines of a muffletta sandwich. So it's got an olive salad in it, deli meats.
They're all excited to be a part of this development, helping to turn the area around.
Vitality back to this neighborhood. We're bringing businesses back to this neighborhood. That is a win in and of itself. There's a whole story still to be told that doesn't involve the projects.
And it's still being written. In Omaha, Stephanie Nolte, 3 News Now.
Stay connected at 3newsnow.com.